Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Augusta Sagnelli. She's an American living in Paris, and we talk about what it's like to be a commercial photographer versus a more artistic photographer, and how editing and many of the things that we do to photography has affected our mindset. Enjoy the show. So welcome to the show, Augusta. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
I had the great fun of interviewing your husband a few weeks ago. And he was talking so many great things about you, and he's like, you have to interview her too. And I am very excited to finally chat with the person behind the stories. And so let's go back to like what's brought you here. Like, obviously, I think I kind of gave it away a little bit, but what brought you to Paris?
Well, it was like a series of really amazing events. When I tell this story, I kind of go back all the way to when I went to photography school in Santa Barbara. My college I went to was called Brooks Institute, and was a small photography school, kind of like a trade school for photography. And they didn't have an abroad program, but the year I was there, they actually instated an abroad program, and they chose Paris. And so when I was like 18, I was on my way to Paris for a semester here, fell in love with it, had a lot of really amazing experiences around photography and kind of discovering myself as a professional photographer. And then I didn't get to come back until like 8 or 9 years later, when a job for Fashion Week brought me here. And that's when I met my husband. Well, you know, he wasn't my husband at the time, but we met, and it was 2 weeks before COVID lockdown, and then I had to go back to the U.S., and we just kind of stayed in touch and got to know each other really well at a distance for like 6 months on WhatsApp and Zoom, and then he finally was able to come to the United States, and we did a road trip together. And I think after like 2 days, we were like, okay, well, now you have to move to Paris. So it was a journey to figure out how to make that happen. And we just kind of knew that, you know, we were a good match. So we decided to get married, and it'll be 2 years since I moved here in March.
Wow. So you moved here like pretty much like peak pandemic and started a new relationship and like had to find a job and everything. So how was that, like trying to move here and like get your business going during the pandemic and everything?
It was, again, just like a crazy fortunate series of events where my last couple months I was living in New Orleans for 6 years before I lived here. And the last couple months there were really lucrative. I had a lot of big commercial jobs for clients that I had never worked for before. They kind of were coming out of nowhere. A lot of connections were being made. So it was kind of a weird moment to leave, because I felt like all of a sudden I was getting all these huge like commercial opportunities. And so I was working a lot in New Orleans. I lived at my parents' house for about 2 months while I was figuring out all the visa stuff. And so I arrived in Paris with a little bit of a cushion as far as a freelance artist can go. Yeah. But, you know, that being said, it enabled me to kind of get my footing and figure out how I wanted to approach being here. And also everything was closed when I arrived. So like we couldn't go out to bars. We were like staying at home a lot, cooking at home, going to the market, going to the grocery store. So it was like a very low cost way of life. And my way of life here has changed so much. Like I used to have a car, and I used to have a studio, and I had all these crazy expenses in the United States that when I moved here just went away. So yeah, I mean, I walk like miles a day. And I never used to do that. I used to rely on my car to get everywhere. So I kind of eased into it, and as everything started to open up slowly, and people started to be able to travel again, I was shocked and kind of overwhelmed in the beginning by the amount of people from the United States who took note that I had moved to Paris. And when they got to travel, I was getting emails and text messages and Instagram DMs from friends of friends of friends or friends of clients who were like, "Hey, I'm coming to Paris with my family. Can we get portraits?" Or, I'm eloping in Italy, and you're already over there. Do you want to take a train and be our photographer? So I had all of these American clients reaching out, and a lot of them were based off of my time in California and New Orleans. And
That's so
and so most of my work, I would say 90% of my work, is just purely through word of mouth.
That's wonderful. I mean, that just speaks volumes of your work. I mean, people are recommending you, and that's always the best kind of clientele, right? Anyway, that's the best way to get found.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, if you know that they're coming from a client who you already had a great experience with, chances are they're going to be great too. So I always say I'm very lucky. I'm not one of those photographers that like rolls their eyes when talking about their clients. I have really good clients.
Yeah, definitely. And you get to do something you enjoy and get paid for it. But
Exactly.
coming back to your photography, I mean, you were mainly working in commercial photography in the States before moving here. How has your photography shifted since moving to Paris?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I mean, like I said, now that I walk so much all the time, I will like deliberately take my camera with me
Yeah.
certain times, and then other times, no. But I always say it's a mood. Like I'll kind of glance at my camera before I leave the house and go like, "Are you coming with me, or or are you staying home?" And so I've been taking a lot of street photos. I always have, but I've kind of taken it a bit more seriously since I moved here. Um,
Yeah.
and I've been doing a lot more portraiture. My clients, I keep, something I keep saying is the biggest shift is my clients went from being brands and teams to individuals, which I really prefer because people, when my subject is the one who is hiring me to take photos of them, or their family or them and their couple, um, it's so much more rewarding. It's much more intimate. It's much more collaborative, and you're delivering photos that they're going to cherish forever and that means something to them. Versus like when you shoot for fashion, it gets used for like 3 months and at max, and then it's gone. And sometimes you can get a great timeless photo for your portfolio out of those shoots. And I love working with teams and models and clothes, but the images themselves kind of have like a shorter lifespan. And I'm much more interested in this approach to photography where the photos are like an individual object. And yeah.
No, that makes complete sense. And we were talking about earlier how like you've moved more into like an artistic style with your photos and like you want them to be shown, you want them to be like on walls. Like, can you talk about some of the differences between shooting commercial versus like artistic photos?
Yeah. So I would say my most artistic photos are my self portraits, because just the process of it just feels like when a painter sits down at a canvas. It's very kind of solitary and like internal. There's a lot of internal dialogue going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I do a self portrait, it's usually a feeling that kind of just comes on. I can't really like help it, and I don't make them all the time, but I go through phases. And I think when I do that, I'm most experimental, I'm most raw. It's usually inspired by the light that is occurring, like either in my apartment or wherever I might be, and I set up my tripod, and I think for those images, I don't take so many. So when I'm done and I'm kind of going through the editing process, there's less bulk to go through versus like when you're shooting for commercial, you have to get the shot, and if the blouse is wrong in the first 10 shots, like you have to reshoot it until the blouse is perfect, and it can kind of, I think, diminish like the value of the final product. So when I shoot artistic stuff or just personal projects, I have this big internal dialogue when it comes to digital versus film, and that could be like a whole podcast in itself. But I shoot digital primarily, and I really, whether people believe it or not, and there's really no way to prove it unless I showed you like my Lightroom with all my raw files, but I really try to not overshoot. I really try to like set the shot up, get the focus, know the exposure, and take the picture instead of just shooting until you get lucky and you find something that you like, which I think
Yeah.
is like, it's the thing that film photographers, like diehard film photographers, really kind of like have a resentment towards digital photographers. It's like, oh, well, you just got lucky. And it's like, well, I think it's just about like your approach to photography. Because if you had endless amount of money, you could shoot on film, you know, until you get the shot and you're lucky too. But I think the philosophy and like the approach to the artistic work, it usually ends up just being like how much importance and care I put into one image versus like a body of photos that you have to deliver to a client.
Yeah, and I think you get to be a little more creative when you're doing your own stuff versus commercial because, like, obviously you have a product to produce for commercial. Like, do you feel like sometimes the creativity is like sucked out of those jobs?
Sometimes, even when a client really wants, like, goes into a project and it's like, we're going to push the boundaries and we want it to feel artsy like that one photo that you did. But at the end of the day, it's like, if the entire necklace is in focus, like, they can't use it. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we can't really have the model move like that because it won't be sharp. So like she has to kind of just stand there, even though she looks amazing and whatever. So like there are like a lot of limitations in that. You can't really like be as free because at the end of the day you have to deliver a certain thing. Whereas like when you're doing something that's more experimental or something that's more personal, you have like the ability and option to play and like let it be weird or let something fall in front of the lens by accident. And like if the whole person is obstructed, like it might add to it. And usually for product, it's not like that. There are some brands that like are my dream brands that I would love to work for where like, you know, they do fashion, but their whole campaign is just like beautiful photos of seashells. And you're like, what?
That kind of pull, they can just do whatever the heck they want.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Exactly.
So how do you feel being on the other side of the camera?
I really love it. The first time I did it was in college. I had a personal project. We were assigned to make a series of 6 images and it had to have a personal nature to it. And I was thinking about who was going to model for me. And then I kind of had this realization where like, no one cares about this subject as much as I do. It was about my grandmother. And, and I was like, so I think I have to do it because like no one, what if they don't give me the right face or what if they're trying to be sexy when they need to be mysterious? And so I was like, maybe it's like a little bit of a control freak in me, but I also was just like, I know I'm going to be able to deliver. And then I locked myself in my room for like 6 hours and shot and did my makeup and changed my makeup and I made headpieces. And I think I listened to like the Adele 21 soundtrack, like her album for like maybe 10 to 15 times in a row. My roommates were like, are you okay in there? I was like, I'm fine. But ever since it's been kind of like a ritual for me. Like I think at least once a year I do a series. Sometimes it's more. But it's kind of meditative. It's kind of, it's really deeply satisfying because like there's so much that you have to consider and set up. And then when you step in front of the camera, you kind of have to imagine what the camera is seeing. And so you have to work with it. And then only until you look at the back of the camera, you can see if you were, too far to the left or too far to the right, or you needed to back up a little bit. So I think it's a really fun kind of dynamic. It's like you're almost like 2 versions of yourself at once.
Yeah, like you're playing a character in some ways.
Yeah.
And do you ever feel like critical of yourself, or do you feel critical of the work, or both?
It's funny. I actually really rarely feel critical of myself or like my body or my skin when I'm taking the photos, because when I look at the images, I see like a completed image, composition, lighting, pose, the subject, how it's working with the background. And then I see myself last, which might be hard to believe, but maybe it's because I'm seeing myself through my own gaze that it feels right, versus I feel like when other people take photos of me, sometimes I'm like, oh, that angle, or oh, my mouth was open. So for me, it's best case scenario. Usually I rarely retouch. And actually in the last couple of years, I've really gotten into like not retouching. Like I only do retouching when people like specifically request it and pay for it separately.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try not to do any body modification, only like blemishes, and skin blemishes and stuff like that. But no, I strangely don't feel critical. And maybe too, when I do, take the photos and I feel compelled to take them, I would say I most of the time feel, pretty good about myself in that moment. So it's, you have a good hair day, or your skin's looking great that week, or there's something about, it's summertime and you have a tan. You're like, every once in a while, if I'm feeling kind of down, I've attempted that too, but I would say most of the times it's kind of like an internal, I don't know, like celebration, or, already feeling pretty good about myself in that moment. And so that's why it gives me the confidence to get in front of the camera, I think.
And it's so great. And also the fact that you are a photographer and you like know how to use the camera, because I think like so many, especially women, like suffer from seeing themselves, and that goes back to like the modifications and cleaning things up.
Well,
How do
actually,
you
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, that's been kind of another direction that I've gone in since moving here. And it's just happened organically as well, word of mouth. But I really enjoy taking, I call them body celebration portrait sessions. And usually nude, or as nude as someone is comfortable getting, but usually we get there. And a lot of it is, really close-ups, almost like macro shots of parts of the body, just the crease of the armpit, or your lower back, or even something that, maybe when you were younger, you have, issues with parts of your body or scars. And, I would love to take more photos of older women. I just think like, just celebrating their bodies and the change that it goes through, or people like when they're, have just given birth, or if they're going through transition. Like I would really love to be able to offer that type of portraiture to people more and more. And especially for people that are really self-conscious and really like have strong, I don't want to say hatred, but like they really just can't get behind parts of their body, and that they don't understand why anyone would find them attractive. I'm like, give me the right light and the right angle and the right lens, and I promise you, like, you'll be able to see parts of your body as art, because I'll make them art. And you don't even really have to associate it with it being you, but if you can, like, imagine how great that would be for your self-esteem. So that's something I've been really really interested in, and trying to figure out a way to promote more. It's hard to promote on Instagram because they usually censor stuff, or the whole algorithm. I won't even get started, but but yeah, I think I'd love to get the word out for people, even gifting sessions for, people have just had a surgery, or, just celebrated like a big milestone birthday. I think it's a really cool thing to gift to yourself, but also like gift to a sister or your mom, or someone important to you that you want them to like be able to kind of reconnect with their physical being.
And like it's kind of their most vulnerable state too, like when they're feeling kind of low about their body or about their age or whatever. It's a great time to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've had a couple of really great sessions with people where I can tell in the moment, it's like, it's so cathartic, and it's so like liberating to just be like, oh my God, someone's like looking at me and like focusing on parts of me. And it's like there's a lot of care there, and sometimes you don't meet the person until you arrive, and then you're like, hey, I'm in your house, please take off all your clothes. But I have such great experiences, and usually at the end people are like, I've never liked to have my photo taken. In fact, it scares me, and this was an amazing experience. So I feel like it's an ability that not many people have or are interested in having, and I would like to be able to offer it to anyone who is interested in having that experience.
I think it's a great idea. I'll be recommending you.
Thank you.
Um, Coming from like that whole thing we just talked about how like people hate their bodies, they don't like this. I mean, working both sides, like being a commercial photographer, working with models, making things look perfect, like morally, like how do you feel about that? Do you think that a lot of us have issues with our looks and our bodies because of growing up looking at all this commercial stuff? Like, what are your feelings about it?
No doubt. I mean, there for a time, I think I was in high school actually. Maybe no, it was in college when I took my first retouching class, and when I realized what you could do and how nothing was real
Yeah.
in the magazines, I had this burning passion to go to like high schools and do presentations of like before and afters on my own photos to show girls and guys like just what it is they're comparing themselves to, and then show examples of like, you know, body hair and veins and all that stuff that gets touched out usually. I
Hmm.
think it's in France. I'm pretty sure if you retouch on an image and you use that image to sell anything, you have to disclose on the image that it has been
Yeah.
retouched, which I think is great because it's just a subtle reminder to people like this isn't the natural state of this person. Like their hair isn't this perfect, their teeth aren't this white. Like all those things. And that's why in France, like you'll see ads where people's teeth aren't white. And you're like,
Yeah.
and it catches your eye because it's different. And then now I feel like I'm kind of desensitized in the other way where, like, even on like lingerie ads, the photos that are in the shop windows, like sometimes you'll literally just see like a bump on their leg or like a cellulite because they don't want to have to say it's retouched, you know, so they just don't retouch.
I love that. I think that's great.
Me too. I think it's really awesome. I think it'd be really cool if we could just get younger generations, um, like just deprogrammed to thinking that everything is that perfect. Because I always say this, and people are like, "Oh, she's so hot," or "She's so beautiful." I'm like, most people are, you know, like just because they're not absolutely flawless, like doesn't make them take them off the list of being beautiful. It's like generally, like if someone's under 30, like they're gonna look great. That's me. That's what I think.
Yeah, by like traditional standards, like your skin's not so bad, like you're
Exactly.
youthful, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And in your opinion, what makes a good photograph?
Hmm. It's funny. I have a big wall of like inspiration in front of my desk right now that I'm looking at, and there's some of my photos, some of my dad's photos, some like classic photos of Bob Dylan. I think my first thing that I look at in an image is composition.
Hmm.
Um, I think whether I realize it or not, that's what draws me to an image. Just the general balance of the shapes and the tones within the frame. Like
Yeah.
I've been painting a lot lately, and I've been thinking about how actually difficult it is to make a good composition when you have nothing in front of you, just
Yeah.
with a blank canvas. And with photography, it's just, you know, you move a little to the left, you move a little to the right, you go down, and then you arrange the shapes within the frame. That to me, I think at a young age was like what was so satisfying. Um,
Hmm.
and then after that, I think it's just like the ability for the image to kind of last. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be timeless. I think it's great when images are kind of like a time capsule of a moment of when you see like the style of someone's jacket, like you know, like that was in the 50s, you know, because of the silhouette. I think that's important, but I do love just like a kind of timeless black and white image that can kind of stand the test of time. Um, and just a great portrait, you know, when the subject really seems like they're in a vulnerable, authentic moment. I think those are the images where I go, oh my god, wow, can't believe they got that shot. Look at that shot that they
Yeah.
got. Yeah,
I find that a lot with celebrities because, like, we just know these celebrities from the screen, and then sometimes these photographers they get like really vulnerable shots of these guys who are so well known, and it's like, how did they do that?
I know. I think about that too, and I've had a couple photo shoots with some celebrities of varying levels of knownness, and they've, you know,
Yeah.
some of them have faded in the background, some of them have really blown up, but I'm every time I'm surprised at how it's just another portrait session.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm lucky. I've never had to deal with like a real diva.
Yeah.
But I think it's so much of it is about trust. And I think as a photographer, a really good a really good skill to have is just kind of being able to intuit someone's personality and like how they want to be given direction. And, you know, some people are really outlandish and some people are really shy and some people need a lot of, you know, feedback, and other people are just like they want to get out of the room. And so I think when you can pick up on that, the faster you can pick up on that, the more you can make that individual subject feel comfortable, and give you what it is that you're there to get. And I actually really enjoy photo sessions that are kind of fast. You don't have a lot of time. You're going into a situation where you don't know what the lighting is going to be like or what the clothes are going to be, and you kind of have to improvise and just make something work with what you have.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that, almost kind of like a photojournalism approach to portraiture. I would say kind of how I approach a lot of my sessions. You know, even if a day looks like it's going to be rainy, I'm like, you know what? I know it says it's going to rain, but like, let's just try for it. And I know some places with overhangs, and like, it's going to look great. And you make of it what you can. And you know, I've never left a photo shoot going like, I didn't get the shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how long did it take before you felt that confident in your work?
Mm. I started taking photos when I was, I shot my first roll of film when I was like 12 or 13 on my dad's film camera.
Mhm.
And really shortly after that, I got a digital camera, and I would dress up my friends and do all their hair and makeup and like take them to a nature preserve in Connecticut. And I would have them like walk around as if it was a spread in Vogue, and I would give them direction. I would kind of creative direct the whole thing. And I think since I kind of tapped into that at a young age, when you don't really know that it's something to be nervous about or insecure, it set me up for a huge kind of comfort,
Yeah.
especially when I'm giving direction to strangers. So I think I always kind of had that ability to like give and take direction and feel someone out, but it's definitely like it's a muscle. Like every time you have a session, you're practicing, and that's why I've done every type of photography over my career so far: interiors, product, events, you name it. Because every time you shoot and every time you problem solve and work with what you have in front of you, it just kind of strengthens that muscle. And then when you do get the shot, it just boosts your confidence. And you're like, okay, if I could get a shot in that dark room with my on camera flash and a piece of paper, like I can do anything.
Yeah.
So
It's like
it's,
MacGyver of photography.
yeah, it's fun. It's like it's a challenge. My favorite thing I always say is my professor in college was like, photography is 90% rearranging furniture. And I say this all the time because you do so much as a photographer on set, no matter the size of the production. Like you're either moving a sofa from one side of the room to the other, or you're doing someone's hair, or you're re-gluing on their eyelash that fell off, or like whatever it is. Like you wear so many hats because at the end of the day, like it's your image that you're making. And if something in the image isn't working and you click the shutter, that means that you intended it to be like that. So you have to kind of touch every part of it before you even hit the shutter.
I love that. And it's so true, right? Because like you are in control. Like you've practiced it all, like creative directing, make hair, makeup, like you can change it how you want to in this kind of situations. And what do you think the role of photography is in today's society?
Oh, massive. I mean, it's so massive. It's so important. I've been listening to a lot of really great podcasts about female artists and photographers over the years, and I think there's always this phase where people like to say like photography is dead, and you know, we're in the video world now where it's 3D, but I think it's amazing that like I have these old cameras that have been around for years and years, and like they still work, and they'll always work. You know, even if they break, they're just these you can fix them. There's little machines that kind of stand the test of time, and I think it's very important. I think it always will be important. I think people are kind of shifting their approach to photography as well, and making things a little more precious. I think people are a little burnt out with the overwhelming kind of saturation of imagery that we've kind of gotten used to. And I think we're all kind of going, wait a minute, maybe I should just be present and put the camera down for a second.
Yeah. It's like everyone's kind of waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And where can people connect with you online and see your work and hire you?
Yeah, so I still use Instagram primarily because that's how people find me, and it's Augusta Sagnelli, my first and last name. And then my website is linked on there as well, augustasagnelli.com. And I also write on Substack, which is a really great platform for writers and artists. You can subscribe for free or you can pay. But I've been posting a lot more there about my process and about images that, like I said earlier, Instagram would censor. So any nudes or anything that I just feel is a bit more valuable, I try to share it on my Substack. And I think that's augustasagnelli.substack.com.
Perfect. Well, we'll share all of that in the show notes. So definitely go check out her work, guys. It's beautiful. You might feel inspired to pick up a camera yourselves or put some random paper blurriness in your photos.
Yeah.
And tune in next week. Thanks so much, Augustus. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.